This session is an example of the existential approach, and it features a colleague of ours, Dr. Nilda Sodo Bishop. If I were to try to boil down the existential perspective into a sentence or so, I'd say it focuses on meaning. And so the listening focus for the counselor or psychotherapist is on listening for what's important or meaningful to the individual client.
Right. I also think it's about self-awareness and consciousness.
And it's about living life fully, embracing life fully, even in the face of death and other ultimate existential concerns.
Including aging, which is a big one for some of us. Peggy, who's featured in this clip, is a 62-year-old graduate student. So obviously some of these issues are real for her.
And Nilda helps Peggy focus on some doubts and some concerns, as well as being genuine and spontaneous in the session. Another thing is that she also tries to develop an I-thou relationship, and I think that's consistent with existential theory. I-thou relationship being of deep respect and honoring of the other person, and yet at the same time being genuine and spontaneous.
So let's watch Nilda and Peggy at work.
Where do you want to go with this session? What do you feel like you could benefit most from talking about this session?
Well, you know that picture of the big jar, and it's Stephen Covey, I think, and you fill it with the big rocks, and then you say, is the jar full? And then say, oh yes, the jar is full. And then he says, well, no, wait, look, you can put all this
gravel in it, yes.
And then is it full? Oh, yeah, well, no, you can put the sand in, and then put the water in. And then what's the lesson? And the people always think the lesson is you can always get more in the jar. But the lesson is really that those big rocks have to go in first. So I've been thinking about that a lot, to know what the big rocks are and make sure they're in the jar. And so my family and work and school and my spiritual life are all in the jar. And I guess I would say that in these last few weeks, I just feel like those 4 rocks are jockeying for position in that jar. Yeah.
Okay. They're jockeying for position in that jar, but they all fit in the jar.
They're in the jar.
They're in the jar and they fit.
Yeah.
So tell me, what position do they need to be in that jar? What are they?
I actually would like to throw the work rock out of the jar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I feel I feel frustrated at work. Like I'm in the wrong place. It's taking up too much time for the amount of reward. All of the reward is just financial, and I am ready to say, you know, they always say, follow your passion, and the money.
Yes. Money is not
and
your
that seems completely unrealistic, especially toward the end of life when you're supposed to be thinking of putting stuff away. But when I think, so I should just do this for another 10 years and retire, it just makes me feel like screaming and tearing out my hair. I can't do it. Physically can't do it. I have to do something else.
Something different has to come.
It takes such a big chunk of life. You know, I'd like to say, in fact, I do say to my husband, why don't you just think about this and see how you feel? And I actually do think that will be part of the process when he just says, you know, I just feel like you need to do this. And he hasn't said that yet. I mean, he's asked me if I think this is just an expensive hobby.
School?
Which, yeah. For a while, I could sort of agree with him. It sort of is. I'm just doing it for fun. But the more I'm in the program, the more it's sort of like fish or cut bait. You're either going to be invested in it or else you're just, you know, like, I don't know, you just wanted a diploma on your wall. That would be an expensive hobby.
It would be an expensive hobby, but school is one of the rocks.
Yeah.
And sounds like it incorporates some of that spiritual part and
and my family.
And the work and family and work.
It's bringing me together with my son, and my husband always just says, I know you were born to go to school. So even if it's an expensive hobby, he wants to be able to provide that for me.
Yes, and I think born to go to school is one thing, but born to be in the program you're in,
Yeah.
that's different, isn't it?
It's taken a while to
Isn't
grow
that
that.
different?
I can't. Well, it's so many years when I didn't feel like a grown-up. I remember being at my daughter's volleyball game when she was in junior high, and during a break the coach came over and was talking to some of us sitting on the bleachers. And in the middle of this conversation, which is always kind of difficult for me, I never can think of what to say, and I thought, he thinks I'm a grown-up. It was like, because I was a mom of a teenage kid, but inside, no, that just wasn't going to go.
Okay, begs the question, you know. Tell me what being a grown-up means to you then. What is that? What is
just that
grown-up?
sense, I guess, that you could make decisions about your own life, that you weren't just waiting for people to tell you what came next, and then you would go, okay. Although, I mean, even as I say that, I know with the kids that I just really like, give me those kids. And that was kind of primal and just in my bones. But in every other area, it was really like, that sense of not being able to ask for things, that was always pretty strong. In fact, just seems like recently, since I've been coming to counseling, that I've had that feeling like, boy, I could ask for things that I want. And I think even in kind of little practical ways, like to say, you know, I know you feel uneasy around my kids, but do you think you could just come stay with them for an afternoon? Even something like that, where, nah, I don't want to do that. And so something that I really want, like this, I really, really want to go to school. And I am actually saying to my husband, I really want to do this. And he, and my son too, they go, are you sure? You really see yourself doing this? Because it would sort of be pushing out into where I haven't really been before. I've done some training with parents, had groups for foster and adoptive parents, but to be a professional person, that's sometimes you have to stop thinking that you would just be play acting and think. It's like applying to the program where you think, they'll never take me, that's ridiculous. And then going, well, why wouldn't they? And that's next thing is to say, you'll never make it in the professional world. And to start saying, well, why not? Why wouldn't I?
That questioner, there's always a questioner there. And it's not just a questioner and kind of a doubter. There's always a doubter there. Okay.
Always have to prove something.
Okay. Is that the grown-up you or the not grown-up you?
I think it's the baby me that says, too scary, too hard. The gifted child me that learned pretty quick, well, maybe not quick enough, but certainly by 6th grade, if you stand out, if you excel, if you put your head up where people can see you, somebody is going to chop that off. They're going to send you to the principal's office every day during art so that you can learn to type, or they're going to push you out of this grade into the next grade. So you leave all your friends behind and meet a lot of people who think you have no business being there. Or, you know, whatever that thing is, don't stick out. And so it just makes you kind of want to not rock the boat.
So I'm just wondering this. Makes me curious about whether there's part of that gifted 6th grade you that knows that if you keep being gifted and you keep being outstanding, eventually someone's going to ask something of you you cannot accomplish, and then you're busted.
No, I don't think it's like that at all, because
good.
It's thinking I can do something that keeps me moving. It's like now when you just go, hey, okay, I've achieved anonymity. There's nobody around me. My kids are gone, so they're not drawing in adverse attention, and I just have it's not a great job, but I'm just, I have a job, and I have good benefits, and I could just disappear in that thing. I could. But there's this thing inside that goes, you want more, you want more, you want more. And I think that's what struggles with that long ago voice that says, and if you reach for more, there's going to be penalties. And really by 7th grade, they're going, you have such a great potential because you're scoring 99 all the way across on the achievement test. you know, and why aren't you doing better in school? And by then, inside you really are saying, are you kidding? I know better than that. No way am I going to. And just kind of stay down in the middle of the pack. But when life just gets routine and ordinary, boy, this thing comes up and goes. You could have more than this.
Nilda tries an explanation that Peggy says no to in this session, which I really liked. I liked how that worked. I could feel Peggy's strength in the relationship, and Nilda rolled with it. Was, yeah, that's fine.
You know, I think that flows from the existential concept of presence and sort of being present in the room. And Nilda is able to be accepting of Peggy having a different perspective than her, which is a really valuable thing. I also really like the moment in the session where Peggy says, you want more, because I think it was exciting and fun, but also it's a preview of what's coming next.
So let's watch for Nilda and Peggy working on some of those existential issues of delight and excitement.
Listening to you talk about school, and I understand that when you were with those kids, raising kids, that was feeding you. And now you've moved into a different place because at a certain point those kids are now going to be doing something different, and they're on their own path.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so here you are, and school is the next leg of your journey, it seems like. That is the leg of the journey you're on. And when I hear you, when I see you, I just sense in you as you talk about what school means to you, I sense that you are so delighted and so comfortable, and you really have a sense inside you that this is the right thing for you right now.
Yeah, I'm like psyched. I am psyched. Although, you know, that thing it says, you really think you can do this? I'm not sure if I can. But, you know, semester by semester by semester, I am having a blast. I just like, you know, like people go, what? You're taking 9 credits this summer? I go, yes. Dog, I can't wait. Yeah. Yeah.
So here's what out of curiosity, I would like you to try this. Just sitting with that delight and excitement that you feel. There's both. There's a delight and an excitement. And just sit with that for a little while and see what you get from that. And maybe if you would like, just scan your body from head to foot and from, you know, down your, don't forget your shoulders and arms, and tell me where do you hold that in your body? Where do you hold that?
Oh, absolutely right here. Better than cheesecake.
Better than cheesecake.
Oh, yeah.
It's just right there.
Yeah.
What does it feel like there?
It just feels full, like full and satisfying. Like instead of like, what do I need? What do I need? What do I need? Just go, hot diggity.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's good.
That's lovely. You don't feel that when you talk about work, but work is, the purpose of work is to support, perhaps.
Well, right, it helps me go to school, and that gives it some meaning.
And that gives you the meaning. So
and I'm getting other people into school, that's the whole thing. So I'm involved with a lot of people, and that part is good. It's not like just total bust, but it's a frustrating setup, and it's not very energizing, and there's a lot of, it could be, but the parts that could be seem like they're always getting chopped off at the knees.
So when we talk about your experience in school being about delight and excitement, see if you can give me some words for your experience at work.
Well, you talked about me taking care of people. That's certainly one thing. It just seems like my coworkers are all kind of falling apart at the seams for various reasons, and that it's very important that I just be the person that shows up every day, that's reliable, and that is not having crises, although, you know, I have to run off for this kid or that kid, but not very often anymore. And and when I first went, I was crying all the time because of what we'd been through with my youngest boy. But now that hardly ever happens. I'm usually just pretty together. I resent it sometimes because sometimes I just need to not be the person that's holding everything together. But so
if school is excitement and delight, work is?
It's hygiene, I guess. I don't know. It's like
hygiene.
Yeah, it's like what, shaving your legs or something. You have to do it, but actually that's not a good example. But just something like that. You know, it's just one of those things. Who likes flossing their teeth? But you just do it, and that's sort of like that. So it's not like a complete waste of time. It's got an important function, but it's just not very fun, and don't look forward to it. And I don't. I think put on Facebook, somebody said, when I die, I'm going to be sorry I didn't spend more time because I'm flossing my teeth. Right. It's that kind of thing.
Right. So it's not a waste of time.
No, it's not a waste, and it's something worthwhile. I feel good about what I'm doing. I have good connections with other clerical staff that need me to give them support and to help do some training for them and be there and answer questions, and getting people into school is good, and I have really, enjoyable contacts with students. So it's not like the job from hell. It's just that.
Does the gifted little girl come into that job at all? Can you excel?
She could. They could let me write a lot more web pages and let me have my own login, so I don't have to just do everything, give it to somebody else and hope it turns up sometime in the next 3 months, and revise the letters so that they really, and they always sort of say, yes, you can do this, but in reality it turns out that you can't. So that's frustrating. I mean, there are times when I think, this could be a pretty interesting job, and you could go out and do some training and develop some materials, but the university is
not giving you that opportunity.
No,
so creative is not one of the adjectives you would use to describe this job. And you kind of...
I like to...
My feeling is that you really need for things to be very creative in your life.
And I like to make solutions. My dad was an engineer, and sometimes I thought if I had known it was going to take me 20 years to get married, I would go back, do that part, and be an engineer of some kind, either an industrial or a civil engineer, and design things and build things. But I thought at the time I wasn't very good at math, and I thought, I'm going to have kids. That was like my goal, and I got that goal. And and I was telling you before that sometimes I thought, boy, doing that just chopped a hole in the middle of my life, and now I'll never get to do these things I'm really starting to love, because I took 20 years of my life and was out of the workforce. But I'm not sorry I did that. That was what I wanted to do, and I did it, and it pushed me harder.
It was your choice. You made that very deliberate choice.
If I had birthed those kids, that would have been, a different picture, whole different picture. But as it was, they needed me. I needed them. It was a good symbiotic relationship. And I think it's put me on the path to where I am now. I think it's brought things out of me that I didn't know I had. And when I didn't feel like a grown-up, when I felt like I have to hide from every scary thing, I could not hide from their scary things because they were my kids. So that was a different way of approaching life than I had had before. It was like, you can disappear. I let me pile on all this weight because that makes you invisible in this culture. But with my kids, I couldn't afford to disappear because they needed to have somebody advocate for them. And so they pulled me back to life in a way. I mean, I always thought I just want a boring, simple life. I would think that, but it wasn't true. And they're the ones that really, just called my bluff. I didn't want life to be boring and simple. I wanted it to be tough and challenging.
I'm kind of struck as you talk about that, the word that kind of stayed with me in all of that. Concept stayed with me, but the word that stayed with me through that is this symbiotic, because it seems a really important part of your life. It seems when I look at these rocks, pretty much it's all, everything you do is kind of symbiotic. Everything is supporting everything in your life. It's kind of the integrative force.
So they all just pull together, sort of. But
Doesn't it seem kind
but
of?
the work doesn't want to.
Rita, in that preceding segment, I really liked the part where they're using the metaphor, and Peggy talks about really feeding herself with school, with something that gives her delight and obviously very positive in her life.
Yeah. And of course, as professors, how could we not love that she pats her stomach and says it feels as good as cheesecake?
It even tastes better than cheesecake. And I think this is consistent with what Kirk Schneider, who's a famous existential writer, talks about when he says embracing the awe of life, kind of rediscovering the awe or the excitement, the deep excitement of life.
Yeah. Obviously for Peggy and her stage of life and her issues, existential work is a great avenue for her.